up, everyone? Tyler here, back with some of my top takeaways from this past week in women's basketball. I want to start with one of my takeaways from last week and how it's kind of evolved a little bit, and that being South Carolina, and the way that South Carolina is going to get stuff done this year. We just saw. I was actually in the building for the Final Four rematch between NC State and South Carolina in Charlotte over this past weekend, and now we just see them play a game against Coppin State as well. And I'm intrigued as this continues to evolve, because last week I had said that I'm interested in seeing how the means to an end, the formula, has changed for South Carolina this year without having a dominant back to the basket big. Now, a lot of that is still ringing true in that this is the new formula. Not that it's wrong, not that it's bad, but that this is a new formula, and I think it's a formula that provides for a little bit more variance in success. Just naturally from you're shooting outside the paint versus inside the paint. It's just a lower percent of shots. But one thing that has been very, very clear is that Chloe Kitts is here. She misses the game against NC State, and it takes it ended up being a pretty smooth victory for South Carolina against NC State, but it did take two really great performances from the guards. And we saw in that game against Michigan and now this game against Coppin State that Chloe Kitts is here this season. She had, 19 and 10 against Coppin State. She played great against Michigan as well. It's different. It's a different way of a big in a South Carolina system. But it doesn't mean it's wrong, and it definitely doesn't mean it's bad. And I'm very intrigued to see how her game continues to evolve. It's been super. It's just different. It's just a different way of going about it. And I say that, and Malaysia for Wiley still absolutely hooped in the game against Coppin State as well. Had 23 points. And it's going to be interesting in seeing how, I think now more than ever, Dawn Staley is going to have to figure out how to balance a player like Malaysia. We've seen similar-ish players and play style with like Isaiah Cook in the past, for example. That is more your hooper type of player. That is just like a straight bucket getter, super fun to watch, things of that nature, and is a bucket, you know. But with that comes a lot of times with that kind of archetype of player is decision making and things of that nature. And Dawn Staley spoke about that in the post game. And trying to figure out the balance with Malaysia. And personally, I think Malaysia deserves even more free reign, because I haven't really seen her make the mistakes like crazy that have kind of been insinuated. And I understand that she plays very fast. It can feel very out of control, but I don't really think it is super often. And if South Carolina is in need of scoring at times throughout this season, I'm interested in seeing if we see a moment where Malaysia is just set free and just goes. So I'll be super, super interested in seeing that this season. Another thing is that, just in general, Iowa State, they're a top 10 team, yet I still just don't feel like they get the respect that they deserve at all. They have one of the best big threes in the entire nation. Audi Crooks really made her name last season during March Madness for the national audience. That is when she really made her name. But Addie Brown was also a freshman last year. Really started off the season stronger than she ended it. But she's incredible. She's gonna get a triple double this season. I'm fully confident that at some point it's going to happen. And that 1-2 combo there, and then you add in Emily Ryan, who's just one of the best pure point guards in the entire country, just in general, who genuinely one of the most underrated players in the country across the board. Just has never really kind of gotten the respect that she deserves, because she doesn't do anything super flashy or anything. She just does the job. And now she has probably the best, Ashley Jones obviously was an incredible player in the Big 12, but I think you can make the argument that Audi and Addie together is the most talent that she's had around her, which makes it super, super fun. Super, super fun. And Addie Brown, just to kind of hone in on her, because that's where I really feel like her and Emily Ryan are the two are two of the most underrated players in the entire country right now. And Audi Crook's starting to get a lot of love, and deservedly so. But we can't dilute down the talent around Audi as well. And that's not to take anything away from Audi. It's to boost up everyone else around her because they deserve it. And I could absolutely see this as a team that catches some really good teams. I know South Carolina's on the schedule. I'm not saying they're going to beat South Carolina, but it wouldn't surprise me. And that's not anything on South Carolina. That is how much belief I have in the talent of Iowa State. And if these two in Audi and Addy stay together for their whole careers, because they both just came in as freshmen last year, they're both going to their sophomore year now. If they stay together for the entire time, they are going to win some massive games. Maybe even as soon as this season. But, it is such an interesting and kind of different style of play, especially Addie specifically. We've seen her take a bunch of threes this season. She stands at 6'2", but she still is going and getting boards. She's averaging 15, 8, and 3, shooting 61% so far this season. She is just such a unique player, but a super fun player, and a player that works really, really well next to Audi. So I'm just intrigued by them just overall, and even though they are a top 10 ranked team, so you can't say that they're underrated, I just don't know how much of that is truly based in how good some of the players surrounding Audi Crooks is. And because I feel like that's where the conversation has kind of stopped with Iowa State, and that's just not the case here. Iowa State is a hell of a basketball team with a incredible big three that can really, in my eyes, go toe-to-toe with just about any big three in the entire country. And it just doesn't feel like they're put in that same tier as some of these bigger star power names. But do not sleep on Iowa State. And there's one player that I don't want you sleeping on either, who just made her season debut last night at the time of recording this. And that's Talia Scott. Auburn got a bucket out of the transfer portal. She ties the 3-point record for a single game makes for Auburn at 8. She shoots 8 of 14. We got to get turnovers down. But she was a freshman last year, and she was one of the most underrated freshmen last season. She plays at Arkansas last year, cooks in the SEC, and goes in the portal to an incredible defensive team that now has some bucket getting. And I'm not going to throw any crazy expectations out there for Auburn. But they saw a need, they filled a need. And they also got Gaston from Texas, who has been playing out of her mind to begin the season. And it's important to note that the competition has not been great. So I'm not throwing out any wild takes. I'm not throwing out anything like that. I'm just taking notice. We're putting some eye emojis on Auburn because a player like that in Talia Scott, and if Deanna Gaston can play this level against the top SEC teams, they are going to upset a team. And they are going to find themselves as a ranked team. They are going to find themselves in some really, really fun conversations come March if they can reach their potential. And Talia is a young player, and you don't want to put too much weight on that and on her, but they might be that duo is probably flying under the radar. And like you said, Talia just played her first game, but just looking at what we saw last season in her success in the SEC, and then if we were able to pair that with a great team defense and a big that is playing in the way that Gaston is. I'm not going to put any crazy take out there, but you don't want to sleep on Auburn. I promise you, you don't want to sleep on Auburn. I'm intrigued. We're going to see how that develops. Like I said, it could just be the competition right now, but the eye emojis are on. So let me know what your takeaways were from this week. If you have any teams that maybe you're eyeing as feeling like they are underrated, and I'll see you next time.